Firewall, a new and innovative program by the Barbados Fire Service to offer you tips and advice on how to protect your homes and property from fire. In this episode, we will take a look at what the Barbados Fire Service has to offer, the recently introduced burn permit, and post-COVID-19 measures being undertaken to protect fire officers and members of the public against this virus.
Protecting life and property. Call 311. Promoting fire safety. Call 311. Enforcing safety standards. Call 311. Even rescuing animals. Call 311. Jaws of life and accidents. Men and women of resilience. Teaching boat extinguishers. Rescue and lifesavers. Call 311.
When there is a crisis, you can depend on the Barbados Fire Service. 311.
Now, the Firewall is the brainchild of Chief Fire Officer Errol Maynard, who's here to tell us more about the program.
Approximately 2 years ago, we wanted to find a program or a number of programs that will enable us to inundate the people of Barbados with fire safety and fire prevention information. We decided that we will call the television show Firewall. The main aims and objective of this program is to inform the public of Barbados, from those in the schools right to the older folk or the more mature folk, about fire and life safety, that at the end of the day we'll have a community of resilient persons because their lifestyle will be one of safety. But our aim and objective is to get the message out there to every Barbadian.
Coming up next, you'll learn more about the recently introduced burn permit.
I am Research and Planning Officer in the Barbados Fire Service, Andrew Taylor. Between January 1st and March 12th of this year, we've recorded 16 residential fires. One house fire is one too many. Remember, call 311 for help.
When there is a crisis, you can depend on the Barbados Fire Service. 311.
The recently introduced burn permit created quite a stir among Barbadians, especially those with businesses that operate grills. Chief Fire Officer Errol Maynard explains how it works.
We have found that people are burning indiscriminately. In some cases, some of these fires has caused the loss of property, other person's property. A matter of fact, since we introduced the burn permit, I think the second week we had an individual burning without a permit on his property, and it actually destroyed 2 houses, and that was sad. So some persons believe that we just do it because we wanted to find something to do, but no, we are trying to protect the people of Barbados. The permit does not include domestic cooking or warming of food, or if you have a barbecue in your yard for you and your friends, it does not include that. Really, we want to target those individuals who have built up garbage and rubbish around their homes and believe that they can just burn. This indiscriminate practice has caused the damage to property and significant injury to person's health and well-being. Most of the time, you might have a neighbor who is suffering from asthma or some other respiratory problem, and the smoke from your burning will impact on them. Because you apply for a particular permit, it doesn't mean that you'll be granted permission to do so. Assessment must be done after every request, and then we will determine whether it's safe to do so or if there are alternatives to burning. And we know there are. You can compost the material and use it back for gardening, or you can ask a freighter to take it to the garbage dump and have it disposed of in the most appropriate way. In that case, it will not impact on your neighbor or the residents of Barbados. So we generally will offer you alternatives to burning, because burning is a very last resort where nothing else can suffice. what we have made allowances for are those businesses who within their operation might need to burn some carcasses or other material that need to be disposed of in such a manner. We have made provisions for that. Even in those cases, we will go and we will do an assessment. And if that is the case, that particular institution or business place will be granted a permit for a year, 1 year, to do so. But we will also do an assessment in those cases. If you apply for a burn permit, as I mentioned earlier, you can be turned down because the whole objective of the process is to avoid burning. If it is dangerous to the neighbors, one, if the smoke if you cannot get it controlled, two, and also if there are alternatives to burning, we will give you the alternative and suggest that you employ the alternative as opposed to burning. Under those conditions, you will be turned down. If it's a case that burning is the preferred choice, and it is dangerous for you to do so as an individual, the fire service provides what we call controlled burning. So we will stand by while the property or the material is burnt, but that is also a paid service.
If you're hosting a barbecue or operating a grill, feel free to do so. But if you simply want to burn stuff in your backyard, you should seek alternative ways of disposing of your waste. Up next, you'll hear more about the post-COVID-19 measures in effect for the Barbados Fire Service.
I am Senior Fire and Life Safety Officer Ryan Glasgow. We are asking all Barbadians on observing any fire-related emergency, call before you click.
When there is a crisis, you can depend on the Barbados Fire Service 311.
The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way business is done across the world and right here in Barbados. Hand hygiene, the wearing of masks are the new normal as countries seek to resume operations. It is no different for the Barbados Fire Service. Deputy Chief Fire Officer Henderson Patrick, who is in charge of operations, explains the protocols that are now in place when fire officers are pressed into action.
The safety of the personnel is the key thing, and we address those matters from the inception of COVID. You said post-COVID, but from the time the pandemic had its impact on Barbados, there were certain protocols that we put in place to ensure the safety of the individuals and also to ensure that the capacity is there to respond and provide assistance to individuals who require that assistance. From an internal perspective, one of the first things that we did was to ensure that we sanitized all of the buildings. We had industrial cleaners come in to the environment and clean all of the stations to ensure that we had the officers in a fairly sterile environment from the inception. But we insisted on individuals that when they respond to incidents, they have to ensure that their safety is paramount. And that is to ensure that you wear your personal protective equipment. And if it is an incident that requires personal intervention between you and another individual, that you also ensure that that person is unable to transmit any body substance to you by ensuring that there is a barrier between yourself and that individual, whatever the barrier may be, but some protective equipment. So that individual is required to wear what appropriate PPE. That might include face masks. And since we are in the field and operation, we have provided the N95 masks for those individuals to operate within that setting. Other masks, which I did not mention a little earlier, that we provided, also the cloth masks that they use in a local domestic type of setting. But once they go into the field, they are expected to use the N95 masks to carry out their operations. And if they have additional concerns to their level of protection, they can also provide masks to the victim to ensure that certainly they do not allow them to convey any substance to them via their mouth or nose. What we have also instituted in those types of operations as well is to ensure that we establish in a very dedicated way the incident command system. What this would allow for us is to be able to set up zones that the emergency personnel alone, those persons who are required in that environment, can come and function within that environment. And persons who are not supposed to be inside there can be kept away to ensure that we have a distancing protocol in place. What we have also recommended with our personnel is that we do not commit the whole team to the operation at the same time, that we allow the minimum amount of staff that can render assistance at that time to render the assistance, and the other individuals will keep their distance, and if they are required, then they can change with individuals, so that we do not commit all of the resources to the activity at the same time.
After the fire is extinguished or the rescue completed, fire officers are also required to sanitize their equipment under the new safety protocols.
Once the operation is completed, then there is the whole sanitization process that takes place, both at the personal level and then also the equipment that was used, as well as the appliances that went to the scene if it was that type of incident that required it. So those are some of the mechanisms that we've put in place to deal with personal cases that might have the exposure to body substances, the potential for the victim to sputum or to cough or sneeze or something like that.
The resumption of school and or camp tours to the fire stations is also out of the question, at least for now, as fire officers seek to reduce their level of exposure to the public.
Currently, we do not have any intention to put that protocol back in place right now. The safety of our personnel really is key. And you would appreciate that if we allow that level of risk to come back in the fire station, and we only have one person affected, one fire officer affected by, the virus, it means that everybody that is in that environment will have to be tested, will have to be quarantined, and then that can put not only a shift out of place, but perhaps it can put a whole station. Really, it's a matter of safety of the personnel and reducing the level of risk so that we can remain as operationally competent as we would like to be.
How are inspections of various homes and businesses being facilitated during the COVID-19 pandemic?
We have to still maintain our legal requirements. It is expected that the Barbados Fire Service ensure that there's code compliance, ensure that there is a level of life safety within the environments, and you cannot put that on the back burner because of the pandemic or because of anything else. What we have done is that we have established some additional protocols for the officers who would go to do these inspections. Again, there's the personal protective equipment that they would carry, the wearing of the mask. We also do a lot of these inspections now by calling ahead, by appointments. Previously, the responsibility is there, or the option is there, that we can turn up unannounced to businesses and conduct an inspection. But we prefer that in these times, persons have the heads up, and when we are there, whatever protocols they need to put in place to accommodate us, that protocol is in place. We have also put in place a mechanism where we can visit businesses early in the morning before business starts. And we can also visit them in the afternoon after business has completed, so that we reduce the level of interaction with customers or persons who might be using the facility.
Thank you for joining us on the first episode of the Firewall. Join us again next month when we will take a look at hurricane preparedness measures being taken by the Barbados Fire Service. Remember, when you see a fire or serious accident, call 311.